Hello, everybody, and good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Let me first do a quick sound check to see if I'm audible, and then we can get started. Yep, looks like everything is working well. All right, so welcome to another Sunday morning where I live, and excuse me, to another reading of this small book or some kind of a gist summary of Mandukya Upanishad by this person, Mr. James Swartz. I hope I'm pronouncing his name well correctly. He has titled it "An Ancient Sanskrit Text on the Nature of Reality." So far, it has been very good. So, first episode was good. I think he is. I'm nobody to ratify anybody else, but he seems to have a very good grasp of the fundamentals of what Mandukya teaches. At the same time, I think I also got a little bit of an insight from this book when he talked about why uh, this infinite ocean of consciousness appears as waves. I say appears as waves because that's the whole point of Advaita. There are no waves in this consciousness. There appear to be waves, and as somebody who lives in this multi-state world, you tend to lose track. Excuse me. You tend to lose track of the fact that Advaita actually means that there is an infinite ocean of consciousness and there are no waves in it, they are just appearances. So I like the way Schwartz sort of analyzed that part of it and said, why do we experience waves? Of course, who experiences it? That's another question. But on a daily basis, we do experience waves in consciousness. That's who we are technically, right? And he says the reason why the waves appear is because of the upadhi itself. Fundamentally, there are no waves in the consciousness. And that, I think, is a wonderful insight. So Schwartz has hit the nail on the head. And I sort of thanked Schwartz for reminding me that, because there was a question always that I used to ponder as well about why does the ocean have a wave, right? There is no wave. It appears to have a wave, right? There is an infinite ocean of consciousness, and that's the only reality. Okay. So wonderful. With that said, he's getting into a little bit more technicalities. Sir, everybody in the comments, good morning, namaskaram, wherever you are. Good evening. I'm going to focus a lot more on the text today because no links yet. Because we are getting, this is a fairly deep theory, right? So if you understand the Mandukya theory, everything else becomes clear to you. That's the Upanishadic teaching in itself, right? Uh, what does the saying go? Let me state it one more time before I get it. What does it say? For a seeker of liberation, mumukshanam mandukyamemam eva ekameva alam. So for the seeker, Mandukya is enough to liberate you, basically, right? For a seeker of liberation, the Mandukya Upanishad is alone enough. So if you understand this and you look at the reality through this lens, everything else should become very clear. Sir, yes, sir, Lawyer Garu, you are in Hyderabad. Good. Okay, let's go. So the next part of this segment, page 7, is what I'm reading. It says the title of the subchapter is The Waker, Dreamer, and Deep Sleeper. Okay, so I actually uploaded this file so that you can actually see what I am seeing, right? So let me see if it is large enough for people to see and appreciate. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. You'll have to zoom in yourself, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to leave this on for a little bit so that you will have this picture on in front of you. Okay, so as you can see, the screen is divided into three parts, or the box that he has put in is divided into three parts. the sleeper right at the top, right? Then the self, which is on the left hand side, the waker, that is the outward looking self, and then the dreamer or the consciousness that is turned inwards, right? And that is the uh, third part. So the waker, so the way you read it is the waker, the dreamer, and the deep sleeper, the sleeper, right? So within the sleeper, there are two apparently, but we'll come to it. How Schwartz has designated this. Okay, so let's get going. The waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper. Now we are getting into the thick of things, into Mandukya Upanishad. As human beings, we have three egos or experiencing entities. All right, very good. We call it ego, but again, it's in quotes. So no big deal. Whatever you want to call, whatever. Doesn't matter. Let's get to it. The first, the waking state ego. The waking state ego. See the bottom left third of figure 1. Exhibit 1, bottom left corner, right? The waker. Is, what is it? The first, the waking state ego is consciousness, the limitless self, shining through body, mind, intellect bundle, experiencing the world of material objects and the subtle world of feelings, emotions, thoughts, ideas, memories, etc. Wonderful start. Again, Namaskaram, Govinda Bhajagaru, and spiritual butterfly garu. I'm not going to name everybody, but let's see what Schwartz has to offer to us. So, again, Namaskaram to Mr. Schwartz as well, right, for putting this together. He has done me a favor, I can tell you that much. Okay, everyone primarily, okay, let's see. The first, the waking state ego, is consciousness, the limitless self shining through the body, mind, intellect bundle. It is consciousness. Again, nothing is different from consciousness, but it is consciousness shining through, right? The upadhi of the consciousness in the bottom left third corner is the limitless self shining through the body, mind, intellect bundle. Pay attention to how he has split mind and intellect, right? Mano, buddhi, ahankara, chitta, basically, right? So body, mind, intellect bundle, that is through which the consciousness is shining, basically, right? Experiencing the world of material objects and the subtle world of feelings, emotions, thoughts, ideas, memories, etc. Wonderful. All right. And then if you look at the picture, the waker consciousness turned outward, right? On the left hand side of the circle, you see sense organs that are perceiving the world. And then on the internal side, right, bringing in the signals and then processing it are the ego, mind, and intellect. Superb. With this picture, he has captured the Sankhya framework, basically. Okay. Outstanding. Everyone primarily views his or herself as waker. When I say me in conversation, or when I say I in conversation, I'm referring to myself as a waking state entity. Case closed. Thank you, James Swartz. The belief that I am a waker, and as our analysis will show, it is only a belief, comes with the conviction that the waking state, physical, emotional, and intellectual objects are real. Yes, sir. So, if anybody comes to you and says, Advaita says everything is the same, all you have to do is, tap them on the head a little bit, knock, knock. Dude, when I say I in the waking state, I'm not saying everything is equal. I am saying I am shining through this bundle. So I am a unique entity with my mind, with my body, with my intellect, and with my ego, basically. Wonderful. While it is a belief that I am this, and Schwartz emphasizes it is a belief, but nevertheless, that's what I'm referring to. I'm referring to that belief, or I'm referring to that reality where I am me. You touch me in a particular way inappropriately, you are going to get the wrong end of the stick. I'm not going to say everything is the same and all that. All right. Just saying. The waker's consciousness is turned outward, the self shining through the senses, mind, intellect, illuminating their respective objects. When idealistic metaphysics claims there is no world apart from the perceiver, it is simply saying that the self doesn't see a world unless it shines through the body, mind, or intellect, not that the physical world doesn't exist. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Yes. Okay. One more time. When the idealistic metaphysics claims, please turn the page. I'm not going to turn the page. I'm going to stay on this page. Anyway, okay. Upon audience request. But I'm not, okay, you want to follow along. Okay, that's fine. Schwartz might hit a copy strike, but who cares? Right? Copyright strike or whatever it is. Let's understand it and then let's leave the book also. The book is an illusion, right? Okay. The Waker's consciousness, okay, I'm reading paragraph number 2. The Waker's consciousness is turned outward. By the way, the book is available PDF you can download from like open source, no big deal. The Waker's consciousness is turned outward, the self shining through the senses, mind, intellect, illuminating their respective objects. When idealistic metaphysics claims there is no world apart from the perceiver, it is simply saying that the self doesn't see a world unless it shines through the body, mind, or intellect. Not that the physical world does not exist. Though existing independently of the waker's perceptions, it doesn't exist apart from the consciousness, the self. Though existing independently of the waker's perceptions, it doesn't exist apart from consciousness, the self. This word should be embalmed in gold, basically, right? Gold plated thing. It exists apart from your perception, but it does not exist apart from your reality. It exists in consciousness itself. It is a projection within the damn consciousness. And what is that projection? What is that mirror? Maya, the first mirror, the first damn mirror that we are stuck with in life. Okay. Anyway, now the more interesting part, the terminology of Mandukya. All right. The waker, Vishwa, is a consumer of experience. By the way, this is where I picked my like screen name. But anyway, let's get to the subject. It doesn't matter what I did or what somebody else did. The waker, Vishwa, is a consumer of experience. The Sanskrit literature describes the waker and describing the waker calls it the one with 13 mouths, right? The 13 mouths refer to the 10 senses, the mind, the intellect, and the ego. Case closed, Sankhya is relevant. Okay. Why is Sankhya relevant? Why is Sankhya such a pillar? Why is Sankhya so important? The first philosophical thought that drew a line in the sand when it comes to the Indian philosophy is Sankhya. Okay. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 2, first foray into the yoga is Sankhya Yoga, basically. Okay. Remember. The 13 modes refer to the 10 senses, mind, intellect, and ego, because it directly refers to the upadhi that we are stuck with, right, for this journey. These instruments are modes in the powered by the momentum of past experiences. They aggressively seek experience in the present. The physical body consumes matter. The 5 elements in various permutations and combinations. The mind constantly chooses emotion. The intellect eats ideas because they are consuming inputs. That's why he's saying they are the modes, right? So if you actually look at Krishna's Sri Krishna's Vishwarupa, and a lot of artists have actually portrayed, there are a lot of faces, and then those modes seem as if uh, no, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Right? Again, if they remove it, I'll make another video without the book. No big deal, right? Because this is, I'd love to keep reiterating this content in my mind, right? Because the experience tends to remove you from this framework, right? It's as if the world is conspiring against you so that you will forget the Mandukya thought process or the framework, and then you have to keep reminding yourself, basically, right? So no worries, don't worry. The Waker Vishwa is a consumer. So yeah, if you look at the artist's rendition, you see a lot of faces, and a lot of faces are actually consuming stuff. Out of some of them, there is fire coming, and then but some of them are actually they are consuming with the tongues out, basically, right? So there is a symbolism there as well. You know, the physical body consumes matter, the 5 elements in various permutation combinations. The mind constantly chooses emotion. The intellect eats ideas, and the ego gobbles up any experience it believes will make it feel whole, adequate, and happy. The I is not whole, right? That is one of the realities of this upadhi. And for the I to become whole, you're always seeking our experience, my experience, basically. Okay. The dreamer. Okay. Now let's come to the dreamer. Right. So here, the lower right portion of it. So the dreamer consciousness turned inward. Right. So now he's essentially referring to that nivrutti marga, where you are taking these, the ego, mind, intellect, etc., and instead of focusing it on the outward looking sense objects, which is their purpose for survival on the left hand side, you are turning them inward towards the self. So the mind, intellect, ego, everything, instead of looking downward in the Sankhya framework, it is looking upward, right? And towards the Purusha that is sitting independent happily, right? I'm not bothered kind of Purusha is sitting there, right? So you are now turning the camera towards the Purusha. Okay. That's the idea here. So let's see what Swartz has to say. The dreamer, the lower right side of figure 1, consciousness turned inward, enjoys a world similar in some respects to the waking state world, but radically different in others. So in some aspects, the dreamer experiences a world that is similar to the Vishwa, basically. But in some aspects, the same dream world, because it's a bridge world almost, it experiences things that are radically different, that sometimes do not obey physical laws, basically. Because why? Everything is turned inward towards the subtle, not the gross, basically. The self, okay, so what is he saying here? Enjoys a world similar in some aspects to the waking world, waking state world, and radically different in others. In the dream state, the self illumines only subtle objects or a replay of the vasanas or the impressions, right? Note the small v's, v as in vasana, circling the self in the waking and dream states. Where are the small v's, man? Okay, it's not there in the picture. I don't know what he's referring to, but anyway. Note the small v's circling the self in the waking and dream states. Gathered in the waking state, expressing in pictorial form. So essentially, again, it's not there in this picture, but what he's saying is there are some mental impressions that you form both on the, especially on the memory, right? Whether some combination of uh, manas and intellect and ego, right? So the dreamer is able to turn inward and look at these vasanas or the impressions and then form a story or create scenes through these subtle objects that are not necessarily available to the same self in the waking state. That's when the world that the dreamer experiences is radically different. Whereas in some cases, if the impression is strongly tied to your waking state, then, for example, let's say you might have a dream where you are having a lot of difficulty jumping off of a height, right? Even though you have all the safety measures. But in some cases, you don't have any problem just walking down a building and then dropping 13 floors and then just walking out, right? So, depending on how strong certain vasanas are, like for example, in your dream, let's say you see a lion, you're still afraid of the lion because in the physical world, you are afraid of the lion, right? But you're not able to come to terms with that dream situation where that you created. It's a subtle impression that you have in your mind. Subtle means it's not physically present, but it's there in your mind, basically. That's why it's subtle. It's not directly gross. You can't touch the lion, basically. Somebody else cannot touch it, definitely. It's not objective reality. It is your subjective impression, basically, right? So you're still afraid of the lion in the dream, basically, right? Why? Because there is a strong impression from the left hand bottom to the right hand bottom, basically. All right. In the in the picture, I mean. Okay. Like the, okay, in the waking state, the vasana is expressed as the waker's thoughts and feelings, right? Like the waker, the dreamer believes he or she and his or her world is real. When you are in the dream state, the dream is real, right? The dreamer is equipped with the same instruments for experience as the waker: dream senses to consume dream objects, a dream mind to emote and feel, a dream intellect to think dream thoughts, and a dream ego to go about the business of experiencing the dream life. So there is a waker life and a dream life. Waker objects, dream objects. Waker senses, dream senses, right? It's a mirror image basically, but in a subtle world. Okay. The dreamer is referred to in the Upanishad as Taijasa. Okay. Taijasa, the shining one, right? Tejas, Taijasa, a term indicating its nature as consciousness. Because there is nothing gross to see, feel, etc., and it's all recorded reality, but nevertheless it is accessible through the inward turned senses. It is still consciousness, right? That is able to do this, is able to access everything, right? The dreamer is referred to in the Upanishads as Taijasa. What is the waker referred to as? Vishwa. Okay. A term indicating its true nature as consciousness. All dreams appear in light, even though the waking senses are inactive. So the waking senses are inactive. For somebody who is looking at your body while you're sleeping, you are knocked out deep in sleep, lying on the bed, right? But in the dream world, you are experiencing a fascinating dream reality, basically. Okay, next. Consciousness is shining through the dreamer just as it shines through the waker. Who is experiencing this dream? The experiencer remains the same, right? The senses, the inward turning, outward turning, all these dramas have changed, but the experiences remains the same. It is consciousness itself, basically. Sleep is defined as the state saturated with happiness, where one loses consciousness, doesn't desire any external objects, doesn't see any internal objects, and is both self and self ignorant. So then we come to the top, right? The sleeper. Okay. So there is the dreamer, then there is the sleeper. Now he is defining sleep before he gets to the sleeper. We are talking about deep sleep, dreamless sleep here. Sleep is defined as the state saturated with happiness, where one loses consciousness, doesn't desire any external objects, doesn't see any internal objects. That also is gone, and is both self and self ignorant. So, this is where the terminology of Advaita becomes a little bit confusing. It is this and that. Maya is undefinable but is experienceable, right? So how could that be? That's how some things are, basically, right? Anirvachaniya, right? But is Maya there? Absolutely it is, because you are experiencing the waker is experiencing it, the dreamer is also experiencing it, right? But how do you define it? Undefinable, you cannot define it, right? Because if there is nothing else that is counterly different from the consciousness, then what the hell is this Maya, basically? You experience it, but it is an experienced reality by senses that are meant to experience, right? If the senses themselves are Maya, it is Maya that is projecting or experiencing the other object Maya, right? And the self is the self, it always remains the same. But is it there? Yes, you bet it is there in certain states. Okay. The sleeper. Now let's come to the sleeper. The sleeper is called prajna, or mass of consciousness, basically. The self and self ignorant. Because you're the sleeper, the deep sleeper, let's call him or her, is self and self ignorant, because there are only two things. The self ignorant is the Maya, the self is the consciousness, right? The first layer of Maya appears in the deep sleep state, and there two non-countably different things exist: the self, that is the ultimate reality, and the Maya, the deep sleep, manifestation of the deep sleep, which is self ignorant, right? Again, I'm not going to throw terminology on top of what Schwartz is already giving us. Let's just go through what he has put together. This is wonderful so far. The sleeper is called prajna, or mass of consciousness. In the other states, consciousness flows outward and inward, but in sleep, it loses direction and becomes formless. Okay, remember this. It becomes formless. The sleeper ego is extremely subtle. Its presence is indicated by the fact that we experience limitlessness and bliss. In the waking and dream states, bliss is sporadic because it is broken by many divisions of thought and feeling. We know of the sleeper's experience because so what is the evidence for the experience of deep sleep? This is critical. Listen to this now. Right? The sleeper ego is subtle. In its presence is indicated by the fact that we experience limitlessness and bliss. In the waking and dream states, bliss is sporadic because it is broken by many divisions of thought and feeling. We know of the sleeper's experience because it reports a good sleep after transforming into a waker. When do you know that you had good deep sleep? When you actually wake up, right? In your deep sleep, there is nothing to experience other than, what did he say? Limitlessness and bliss. Because there is no mind in deep sleep to say, oh, I'm having a good experience. There is no I. The ego is gone. The mind is gone, right? The intellect is gone. All that remains is the self and the, what is it? Self ignorance. That's it, right? So there is limitlessness and there is bliss. But when do you report it? Only after you come back to the waking state. And this is where yoga gets stumped. Yoga is always trying to go to the top part of the figure while you are in the waking state, right? Which is a great exercise in self-control and mitigating your all those things that are outward, turn them inward, and then try to get to, don't dream, just jump to the samadhi state, which is experiencing deep sleep while you are in the waking state. But why? Every day you experience it, right? Most people do. Most animals, most sentient beings do, right? But so what, right? What does that give you? Nothing, right? I mean, if deep sleep state truly gives you the liberation, then the first time you fall into deep sleep, right, then you should be liberated. Is it happening? Apparently not. Mm. Have a sip of coffee. Mm. All right. The deep sleep state is free of both waking and dream egos and objects because the vasanas projecting them have become dormant. Hence, it is referred to as the seed state, the potentiality state. When the seeds sprout, one becomes a waker or a dreamer, the appropriate world. Well done, Swartz. Mr. Swartz, I like how you put it. Because we don't remember being conscious in it, the deep sleep state is often thought to be a void by metaphysicians and philosophers. It's not a void, but that's what some people think of it as. In fact, Sanskrit literature refers to it as the womb. Wonderful. Because our waking and dream worlds emerge from it, right? Because where is, so let's flip the coin, right? Let's look at it from the other side. So let's say you are in the deep sleep state. The mind is gone, the ego is gone. But at some point you got to wake up, right? How is that happening? That means the potentiality of the waker and the potentiality of the dreamer are both, they both exist in seed forms in the deep sleeper state, right? And that is why that is called the womb. Okay, now I'm going to throw a term. Let's see if Schwartz covers it. Think of this term, Hiranya Garbha. Okay, this is the womb that they are referring to, not some kind of an egg. Okay, no offense to anybody. There is no egg. Okay, it's symbolic. Hiranya Garbha. It is the womb where the waker and the dreamer of all upadhis lie. Okay, albeit independently, individually. Okay, excuse me. When you, okay, in fact, Sanskrit literature refers to as the womb because our waking and dream worlds emerge from it. When you wake up in the morning, your whole life is neatly laid out, consistent with the day before. The same language you spoke yesterday on the tip of your tongue, indicating that the previous experience had simply entered a dormant state. The dormant potential of the sleep state containing the macrocosmic vasanas is called, drumroll, Ishvara. Okay, the creator in the Vedantic literature. Okay, one more time. Very good. So Schwartz has now come to the individual versus the cosmic differentiation as well. Okay, what does he say? The dormant potential of the sleep state containing the various, the macrocosmic, not the individual, the macrocosmic vasanas is called Ishvara. Okay, the creator in the Vedantic literature. So, who is the creator? It is that potentiality in that deep sleep state. So we don't think of the creator as somebody beyond the clouds, right? Like Zeus, an angry old man with a beard, and then with a thunder in his hand, blah blah, the thunderclap, whatever it is. Nah. This is Ishvara. This is the creator. Okay. With reference to the microcosmic vasanas, the sleeper is called the prajna. We already covered that. The sleep state is also known as the gateway between the waking and the dream states because it functions as a kind of a closet with two doors where the dreamer can don the guise of the waker to appear in the waking stage and vice versa. Though a minor point, even in cases where one seems to be awakened directly out of a dream by a noise, for example, the dreamer passes through the the sleep state. A motion picture image of a stationary object is actually dozens of individual images passing so fast they seem to be a solid object. We all know that. Similarly, we can't trust our experience in this case because the change is so fast we don't notice it. So when you go from, let's say, suddenly you wake up, what Schwartz is saying is, if you are in a dream, you suddenly go to the waking state. He is saying that we don't notice the change, but you actually go through a deep sleep cycle. Okay, this is technicality. Whatever, doesn't matter, right? But you have to realize that the three states have access to each other in this picture, right? So if you look at it very carefully, there are three lines as well, transition states. Okay, excuse me. What essentially Schwartz is saying is that if you go from dream, like let's say you are sleeping and there is a dream or whatever it is, and then suddenly there's a big noise and you wake up, you still go through the deep sleep state because it's like a gateway. Okay, fine, whatever. Though they seem so, the three selves are not actually separate entities but apparently distinct entities created when the limitless I associates with a given state of consciousness. Right? Infinite ocean of consciousness gets limited, right? Attains characteristics by shining through this limited upadhi, whether it is the sleep or the dream or the waking. But they are not independent entities, they are connected. Now he is coming to the what is common between the three, I guess. He described what is different and how they are different, how they are at the transition. But then now he's getting to probably what is common. Let's see what he says. Associated with the waking state, the self becomes a waking state personality, suffering and enjoying. Okay, though they seem so, the three states, the three cells are not actually separate entities, but apparently distinct entities created when the limitless I associates with a given state of consciousness. Right? The gold becomes a bangle, for example, analogically speaking. Associated with the waking state, the self becomes a waking state personality, suffering and enjoying, as the case may be, the limitations of the physical world, the senses, mind, intellect, ego, unconscious, and self ignorance. The dreamer suffers the limitations of the mind, unconscious, and the self ignorance, not the physicality. And the sleeper, the self, apparently merged into the unconscious, suffers only self ignorance and limitless bliss. These three states and egos are known to everyone and constitute the totality of the limited I's experience. Yes. So these are the three main upadhis, is what he's saying. An interesting question posed by this analysis and the endpoint of the Upanishad is another drum roll. Okay. An interesting question posed by this analysis and the point of the Upanishad is, in quotes, who am I? All right. So which freaking page is this? Hang on. Yeah. Who am I? So now let me pause here for like a second and then tell you. Trying to answer the question, who am I, without understanding the Mandukya four state model, right, is like trying to, I don't know, trying to remove a bolt or a screw without having a spanner or a screwdriver, basically. right? You will be stuck in the world of analogies forever and going spinning in circles, 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 without projecting your experience into yourself and doing an inward journey. You exactly experience the same in trying to understand Advaita. Okay? Without these tools, it's a futile exercise. Maybe suddenly one day everything will dawn upon you, right? But that is like a lightning strike, right? It can happen to anybody. I'm not discounting that part. But if you look at the, uh, if you remove the exceptional cases, you need these frameworks in order to get to that point to understand. Okay. So again, the who am I question has been posed, and this is the right place to pose it. If I am the waking ego, which I have been totally convinced I am, what happens to me when I become a sleeper? I willingly surrender everything essential to my idea of myself, my body, mind, intellect, and all my physical possessions, and turn into a mass of limitless consciousness. Right? The sleeper he is talking about. Yet I don't seem to be content as a sleeper ego, the blissfully ignorant subtle being, because I sacrifice that status to suffer and enjoy the world created by my vasanas in the waking or dream states. My dreamer identity is obviously equally insufficient because I always leave it to become a sleeper. Right? So my status as any one ego or ego aspect is limited, and my true identity open to question. So he posed the question and he says, if I am if I am in a particular state and that is my true state, then why would I experience these other states? Why would the limitless consciousness shift between these states if it is already in its original state? That means neither the sleeper state, nor the waker state, nor the dreamer state is the true reality where you don't feel the need to shift, or the limitless consciousness does not feel the need to shift between these states, basically, right? So which brings the question, because shifting is happening, who am I? What is my reality? Right? So my true identity is open to question. Okay. Furthermore, if identity is happiness, any ego identity is limited, since the happiness experienced in sleep disappears in the waking state. Okay, if identity is happiness, if happiness is who I am, then any ego identity is limited, since happiness experienced in sleep disappears in the waking state. Right? If identity is happiness, then the happiness should exist in all three states. But in the waking state, all I have to do is to hit you on your foot, and then you experience pain. The happiness is gone, basically. Right? So, given that happiness is also not my reality, not my real state. Okay, don't conflate between happiness and bliss. There is a difference in the Upanishadic parlance. Sukha is happiness, Ananda is bliss. Okay, so that's why it's important to have these terms very clear in your mind. A lot of people, they sort of kind of mix and match between terms very conveniently. It's fine as long as you are having a superficial conversation. The moment you get into the details and then start describing your states a little bit more, start paying attention, terminology becomes very important, because otherwise what you're defining doesn't make any sense. Okay. Anyway, furthermore, if identity is happiness, any ego identity is limited, since the happiness experienced in sleep disappears in the waking state. It does indeed. Dream happiness dissolves on waking, and waking happiness cannot be transported into dream or sleep. There are people desperately trying to transport that dreaming happiness into the waking state, right? How do they do it? All you have to do is just walk around on the street in the corners and all that in some places, and then they'll sell you substances, right? Highly not recommended. First of all, completely discouraged, because what you are carrying over is not the dream happiness into your waking state. You are carrying a delusion, basically. Your stupidity comes into your waking state, and then you'll ruin yourself. Don't ever go in that direction. Pay attention to your three states. Don't try to superimpose states by using substances. Okay, okay. Let's see. Should we go into this? Okay, couple of more pages. I have the energy. It's already 8 o'clock. Okay, so on this note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this session, because our man has covered quite a bit of content in these 3 pages because he has essentially gone to the root of it, right? And then he has explained through this very simple picture, although, picture is a little confusing just when you look at it by itself, but it serves a purpose, right? So it's not too bad. So in these 3 pages, he has essentially described the 3 critical states. He hasn't come to the 4th state yet, right? Which we'll get to in our next reading. But the 3 states, what is the upadhi in each of the states, what remains, what does not remain, and why shifting is happening between these 3 states. While happiness is experienced in each form or in each state, that happiness seems to not last when you go into another state. That means happiness also is not your true identity. The fact that the shifting is happening also means that it is not your true identity, right? None of these 3 states. So the question remains. And at the end of the chapter or the subchapter, he has posed the question, which brings us to the question, who am I? Okay. So we have some tools with which we can answer that question. He has introduced all those things. He has introduced terms like Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna, right? Then he has also, what else did he? He didn't give the terminology, but he talked about the potential state, the state at the cosmic level, right? You know, uh, what did he use the term? Let me see. Yeah, at the microcosmic level, it's called, at the macrocosmic, he did use it. It's called Ishvara. Okay. The potentiality. Okay. Is called Ishvara in the deep sleep state for the universal, for the macrocosm or the universal level, basically. At the end of all this, I'll bring everything. I have a small, like a table with, once we get through all this material, I'll show that table and then I'll show you where each one fits. But for the time being, as far as this session is concerned, I'm going to close it. For everybody who participated in the live, as well as whoever is going to look at it in the future, please take a look. It is very dry stuff. Okay, it doesn't come to you just like this, right? The way you make it undry or the way you make it stick to you is you have to apply it to your own experience. Don't keep looking for examples outside. Look at yourself. Okay, and what you go through when you sleep, when you go to deep sleep, when you dream, when you wake up, all those things. The beauty of it is the experience is in your hand. You don't have to look anywhere. You don't have to go ask a guru or anything like that. Just observe your own states. Don't go all psych about it. Just be an observer and see what goes on, right? And try to tally it with what James Swartz is saying. With that, if you like what I'm doing or this channel, please like and subscribe. I am going to close this session now. Everybody have a wonderful week ahead and enjoy the rest of whatever is left of your weekend. Thank you.